Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump laying out a timeline for Operation Epic Fury. That's as the president vows to avenge the deaths of the 4 American service members killed in action. And Israel expands strikes on Beirut. That's after Iran retaliates for the killing of its supreme leader and nearly 50 top officials. The conflict is rapidly escalating across the region. House Speaker Mike Johnson planning for a classified briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration. The House Speaker showing full support for the president's military operations. The FBI is probing a terror connection after a gunman opened fire in Texas, killing 2 and injuring 14. Authorities say the suspect wore pro-Iranian clothing and had weapons in his car. Middle East tensions are hitting the oil market, prices spiking after Iranian attacks disrupted shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. People in Iran and across the globe celebrating the death of Iran's supreme leader, and in New York City, a rally celebrates the dictator's fall and looks forward to a new future for Iran.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Our top story, President Trump saying U.S. strikes in Iran are likely to last around 4 to 5 weeks. That's at an East Room event where he's awarding the Medal of Honor to 3 U.S. servicemen. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mari Otsu, who was just in the East Room ceremony with the president. Mari, good to see you.
Hey, Don, good afternoon. Yeah, that's right. President Trump now saying that they projected 4 to 5 weeks originally for these strikes in Iran. But the president also saying that we do have the capability to go longer than that. And he's saying that at a ceremony in the East Room here, awarding 3 U.S. servicemen, 2 of them posthumously, with the Congressional Medal of Honor. And so the people there present in the audience are especially aware of the cost of war. That says we now have 4 U.S. servicemen killed in Operation Epic Fury. Behind me here is the POW MIA flag still flying beneath the American flag in honor of these lost lives. And the White House, though, is saying that this is not a forever war. President Trump saying that the objectives are very clear and laying them out for us. Take a look.
We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
And Don, the president's also pushing for new leadership in Iran. He's telling ABC that the U.S. had identified some possible candidates for that, but that they were all killed in the original attack in Iran. The president also saying that somebody within the Iranian government reached out to him, although he didn't name that person. That's as President Trump's telling Fox yesterday that 48 Iranian officials have been killed. And as for the death of the Ayatollah, President Trump's telling ABC, quote, "I got him before he got me. They tried twice. Well, I got him first." There he's referencing what the Department of Justice believes was a plot to kill President Trump in 2024. Meanwhile, President Trump and War Secretary Pete Hegseth are honoring the 4 U.S. servicemen who were killed in these attacks. Take a look.
Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people.
A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them, taken too soon by Iranian radicals.
And meanwhile, Don, the Pentagon is also pushing back against the narrative coming from some of the mainstream media and some lawmakers that this is a forever war. That's as some members of Congress are using that argument to push for a vote on war powers resolution this week that would limit powers on the operation in Iran. Take a look.
President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes.
And President Trump and the Pentagon still urging the Iranian people to take advantage of this opportunity and take back their government. Secretary of War Hegseth saying in his presser this morning that this is not a so-called, quote, regime change war, but that the regime did in fact change and that there is this opportunity now for the people of Iran. Back to you, Don.
Okay, Mari, thank you. U.S. Central Command says 3 U.S. fighter jets were shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses in a friendly fire incident. Here are the details.
Online video showed a U.S. warplane falling from the sky over Kuwait. A person can be seen parachuting to the ground. U.S. Central Command said Kuwait's air defenses mistakenly shot down 3 American F-15 fighter jets during active combat missions against Iran on Monday. The U.S. and Israel launched a joint assault on Iran over the weekend with missiles and airstrikes targeting Iran's leaders, commanders, and military installations. Iran launched retaliatory strikes on neighboring Gulf states in response. The U.S. described Monday's incident as an apparent friendly fire episode. CENTCOM said all 6 crew members from the 3 jets ejected from the aircraft safely were recovered and are in stable condition. It said that Kuwait had acknowledged the incident and that an investigation was underway. Kuwait had intercepted hostile drones earlier on the same day. In a separate incident, smoke was seen rising from the vicinity of the U.S. Embassy compound in Kuwait City. Witnesses told Reuters fire trucks and ambulances were in the area. There were no responses to requests for comment on the embassy incident from the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait or from the U.S. State Department.
And a major new front in the operation. Israel today saying it's expanding operations to include the terrorist group Hezbollah in Lebanon. Lebanon's state news agency reports at least 31 people killed and 149 injured in initial strikes. Footage shows hundreds of people crossing the border as the conflict widens. Hezbollah says it launched missiles and drones toward Israel in retaliation for the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, Israel says it's keeping all options open for a possible ground invasion in Lebanon. And Lebanon now says it's banning Hezbollah from any military or security activities. The government is urging the group to hand over its weapons. In a statement today, the prime minister condemned the rocket launch claimed by the terror group, calling it a violation of cabinet decisions. The Council of Ministers stressed that the decision of war and peace rests only with the Lebanese state. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it struck senior Hezbollah figures and command centers in Beirut and Tyre. It says the strikes were in response to rockets fired into Israel and that it's prepared for a multi-front scenario. Lebanon's prime minister responds.
To ensure that Lebanon does not get dragged into any conflict in the tense regional circumstances, the cabinet requests the mediator states to achieve a clear and final commitment from the Israeli side to stop all its assaults on all of Lebanese territory.
The Department of State is urging Americans in Lebanon to leave immediately. The embassy says the security situation in Lebanon is volatile and unpredictable. Americans are advised not to travel to Lebanon. Those who remain should prepare emergency plans and be ready to shelter in place if conditions worsen. The embassy says Americans should not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is targeting tyrants. He was at the site of an Iranian missile strike west of Jerusalem earlier today. Here he is, drawing a contrast between Israel and Iran after yesterday's attack killed 9 people.
This is the 3rd day of the Operation Roaring Lion, the operation the Israeli army and the state of Israel set out to, with our great friends, the United States of America and President Trump, to thwart existential threats to Israel and great threats to America and the entire world. When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians.
Netanyahu added that a nuclear-armed Iran would pose a threat to the entire world. The war in the Middle East continues as the Israeli and U.S. bombing campaign against Iran intensifies. Iran and its allies are targeting locations in Israel and neighboring Gulf states. Tehran has long threatened to expand the conflict into a regional war if attacks continued. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates said Iran has launched more than 170 ballistic missiles toward the country since the start of the conflict. The country's defense ministry said it had destroyed 161 of the missiles and intercepted several hundred Iranian drones. The ministry condemned the attacks, calling them a flagrant violation of its national sovereignty and international law. UAE officials said 3 people had been killed while 68 suffered minor injuries. Qatar said its air force had shot down 2 Iranian bombers and intercepted 9 ballistic missiles. And joining us now to discuss the situation further is retired U.S. Navy Captain Armen Kurdian, foreign policy and national security analyst. And we also have Brian Leib, foreign policy analyst and former executive director of Iranian Americans for Liberty. So Trump announcing today the objectives very clear: destroy Iran's missile capabilities, take out the Navy, eliminate their ability to get a nuclear weapon, and eliminate their ability to sponsor terror outside of its borders. So I'll start with you, Armen. What are your reactions right now to these objectives?
I think they were very clearly articulated, Don. You noticed that he didn't talk specific about regime change, but I can tell you the attacks on the Navy are an effort to prevent their ability to close the Straits of Hormuz from a naval perspective, or mining the straits, and of course, knocking out missile batteries which are in range of the Straits of Hormuz, which could attack neutral shipping or U.S. shipping or carriers. So I think this is good that he actually did that. You see a little bit of a disconnect between what he's talking about and what Netanyahu's talking about in terms of regime change. So it's going to take a little while for the U.S. to achieve these particular goals. When they are achieved, or when we believe that they're close to being achieved, it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Okay, so Brian, give us your thoughts right now.
Well, I think what's been happening over the last 48 hours is certainly monumental, and we're going to be talking about this for a long, long time. I do think ultimately the goal here is regime change, both from the Israeli perspective and the U.S. perspective. You see what's happening right now with the strikes that are continuing, that we know now are also going to intensify quite a bit now over the next coming days and weeks. The goal here is not to just get rid of the head of the snake, which you see on the screen right now, and all the other people that have been eliminated, but a lot of the second and third tier levels as well. I really think this is a wholesale kind of take out the trash operation here. And then once that's done, it's going to be up to the Iranian people to chart their own destiny. And I think, that's going to happen. But we've got to make sure that all of the IRGC elements are eliminated before the Iranian people can start doing their thing.
So Armen, in your view, is a regime change essentially a given here, is needed in order to achieve all the objectives that President Trump listed earlier today?
Ultimately, yes, it will be very hard to achieve. I don't think it's going to necessarily be successful unless there are coordinated efforts that are on the ground. If, say, you had Israeli special forces in there, or saboteur teams, or coordination with the Iranian resistance to go in and take over. It will be very, very hard. I know that's what they want to do, but there's been discussion about what that would actually look like, or could it destabilize the entire country and drop it into civil war? But if there is no regime change, then you will see this continue to happen in the future. You will see Iran try to continue to reconstitute its nuclear capability, continue to try to support a lot of the proxies in the Middle East. And if we have another change in foreign policy in 3 years, perhaps a relaxing of Iranian sanctions, they'll get their money back, they'll get their foreign currency reserves back up, and it's going to go right back into Hezbollah and Hamas. And we just can't have that anymore.
Okay, so Brian, how do we have a Iran where the current mechanism is not present when a new regime, new government takes over? How do we do that?
I think you're going to see a lot of that unfold in the next couple days and weeks here as the Israelis and the Americans continue to really just hunt down as many high-level IRGC officials as they possibly can to eliminate them. Of course, I'm sure the CIA and the Mossad are also working their back channels to try and get some of these individuals to flip and leave the country. But listen, the Iranian people are not going to be able to start taking over, like I just said, until a lot of these IRGC elements are removed, because Iran it's a very big country, home to over 80 million people, and the vast majority of them do not sympathize with the regime or support the IRGC in any way, shape, or form. But there are still IRGC elements that are in place right now, the same way that even when you look at the Israel-Gaza situation, there's still tens of thousands of Hamas soldiers that are still alive and kicking and have weapons. And these threats have to be eliminated for there to be peace all throughout the region. So I think that's the main thing to look at here in the next couple of days and weeks is how aggressive are the Israelis and us on our side, the Americans, in really hunting down and taking out as many IRGC officials as we possibly can.
All right. Okay. So Armin, I would imagine a number of Americans at home have a lot of questions here. President Trump said today the Iranian regime poses a threat to the American people. Can you just talk to us, in your view, how so? What is the threat?
Ever since they took over back in 1978, Iran has been waging war against the West, whether it's the Beirut bombing, whether it's the embassy bombing, whether it's support of Proxy's attacks in the Middle East, whether it's delivering of those specialized IEDs, those shape charges that went after American armor in Iraq, or what have you, or their, the IRGC's efforts in Yemen, their support of Hamas and Hezbollah. They are pretty much the world's pariah. So that regime, it's a mentality, it is a fanaticism to go after the United States. It is part of their blood. It is part of who they are. And I'm talking about specifically, again, this leadership, this theocracy, not the vast majority of the Persian people. My mother was born in Iran, and she certainly doesn't sympathize with this regime. So ultimately, the Iranian people are going to be the ones who are going to have to change their government. But to that point, they're not going to be able to do that if the IRGC is still strong enough to resist and stop them from doing so.
So, Brian, similar question to you. What would you say to those Americans who may be wondering, how does this impact my life? Why does it matter?
Well, let me first say that it's my belief, and also the belief of President Trump, that America first does not mean America alone. We cannot be isolationists, and we sometimes have to take the fight directly to the bad actors throughout the world to ensure that fight doesn't come to our doorstep. And that's exactly what President Trump has done now in partnership with Prime Minister Netanyahu in eliminating so many of these key figures inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And it's really, really just a major threat, not just for the region, not just for Israel and for their Gulf partners and Gulf allies there. But I mean, listen, this is a regime that has threatened to blow up the U.S. Capitol building, has tried to assassinate Americans, had assassination attempts trying to assassinate the sitting president of the United States. And oh, by the way, over the last 40 some odd years, as they've been in power, they've been killing Americans and Israelis every chance they can possibly get. I mean, don't forget, during the Iraq War, a lot of those IEDs, they were made by the Iranians. So, they have the blood of hundreds, if not thousands of Americans on their hands. So, what's happening right now, in my opinion, Don, is really long overdue. A lot of presidents have talked about this. A lot of administrations have talked about this, and they just keep kicking the can down the road year after year, decade after decade. And finally, we have a president and in partnership with Prime Minister Netanyahu that really had the guts to do what needed to be done, and truly is a historic moment, I think, for the world right now.
So Armin, Brian says this is long overdue, and Iran is saying it's going to continue to retaliate until the United States and Israel are definitively defeated. I don't know if there are risks there. Can you just explain to us, what does that mean?
Well, basically, it means that if we're shooting at Iran, Iran is going to try and shoot back. I would question some of their tactics and their strategies by going after some of the Middle Eastern states, attacking the UAE and Dubai attacking the airport and other civilian targets. They're just making them angry. They're shooting missiles at Cyprus, at the British, for crying out loud. Spreading out the war to the rest of the Middle East is not going to be successful in that sense. All it's going to be is just going to allow the U.S. to continue to attrite Iran's combat capability, and also now using some of those bases in some of those countries that previously said that we would not be allowed to use, and allow us to use them. And that allows us to bring additional combat power to bear in terms of the Air Force that has tactical aircraft in there, so they don't have to just rely on the B-1s and B-2s flying all the way from the continental United States on those day-and-a-half missions to drop their guided weapons and penetrator bombs in the middle of the country. So Iran is actually not acting in its own best interest in that sense, but they'll keep trying to fight us. They probably will get a few lucky hits, as they have. But overall, as we have seen over the last several years, Iran's ability to effect combat operations against the U.S. and Israel have pretty much been very ineffective.
So, Brian, Lebanon fired rockets at Israel. Is the war widening here?
Well, let me just say before that, my panelist's opinion here is exactly correct. I mean, the Iranians' capability to really combat what the U.S. and Israel is doing is they don't have the same capabilities that we do. I mean, come on, they haven't put a single fighter jet in the sky since this started here in the last 48 hours. We have air superiority through most of Iran right now, and that's going to continue. Most of the missile sites, both the ICBM sites and also the defense missile sites, have been eliminated. So the Iranians really don't have a lot left when it comes to military technology, military wherewithal. They probably do have a couple hundred missiles. Maybe that number's a little closer to 1,000. That's really all they have. They have missiles, and then they also have the IRGC thugs that are on the streets all throughout Iran that can take to the streets and kill their own people, with machine guns. So they don't really have a lot of capabilities to go toe to toe with us, the Americans, or with the Israelis, and we're seeing that unfold right now. With regards to your question about Hezbollah, Hezbollah has been seriously degraded over the last year or so. This was something I think that the Israelis have been really focused on over the last year or so, and post October 7th, is making sure that if this moment ever did come where a strike against Iran were to happen, that Hezbollah's capabilities would be severely neutered, and they are. I think it was just 10 or 15 minutes after the current Hezbollah commander announced that he was, launching these strikes, he was killed 10 or 15 minutes later. And now we also see the ruling government in Hezbollah, in Lebanon, condemning Hezbollah. So, Hezbollah is not going to be the factor that they were a couple of years ago. Certainly, I'm sure they can fire off, some rockets and do some certain things, but they're not going to be the big threat that they once were.
Okay, Armin, I saw you nodding a little bit over there. Can you just give us what you're thinking? Anything to add to what Brian said?
Well, Brian is exactly right. What Iran's ability to affect events within the Middle East is really seriously been attrited by Israel and by the United States. I think probably the greatest concern would be security here in the homeland. Was Iran able to get sleeper cells in the U.S.? Are they able to affect any cyber attacks within the U.S.? It's only been a couple of days. Is it possible? Certainly. We haven't seen them be able to actually implement that. We've seen them try on a cyber operations a couple of times, not successfully. So that is probably the only axis of attack that Iran has that could really have some kind of impact. But even then, it's not going to be enough. It could be annoyance, it could be a hindrance, but there was really nothing that they could do to stop the United States from taking out these capabilities that the president articulated this morning.
Okay, I just have one final question here. Brian, we know China relies on Iran for oil to a significant degree. How does this impact China? How does that fit into this equation?
Well, yeah, it's so interesting that the Iranians are trying or thinking about shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, because who's going to hurt the most from a situation like that is going to be the Chinese, the CCP. So listen, I think this is a big moment, not just for the Middle East, but for the world at large. You had the Russians and the Chinese over the last year or so that tried to develop this new axis of power when Biden was the president, and they were successful in coming together and doing different deals to help each other. But now I think the CCP is really rethinking a lot of things here. They made a bad bet in trying to back and support the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. And at the end of the day, guys, they're not going to go to war with the U.S. They're not going to go to war with Israel. So this is a weak moment, not just for the Iranians, but for whoever their allies are, being Russia and China.
Okay, so Armin, Brian brings up the axis of power, which includes China and Iran. With the U.S. Operation Epic Fury now, what do you think it's going to do to that axis of power? Just final thoughts from you.
We took out Maduro, and the president is allowing Venezuela to sell oil to China legally, eliminating the need for oil to be sold by Iran via the black market. So Venezuela is no longer a player. Syria is out of the picture. They're no longer friendly to the Shia militias in there. Cuba is not doing well right now. And here we are trying to take out Iran. President Trump, you got to give him credit, is changing this world order, this effort to stand up to the United States and basically create an axis against the U.S. Well, Donald Trump has been Alexander's blade to the Gordian knot.
Yeah, I think many would agree with you that President Trump has taken bold actions in his second administration. Well, it's been great speaking to both of you. Armin, Brian, pleasure.
Thank you.
Coming up, House Speaker Mike Johnson planning for a classified briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration. The House Speaker showing full support for the president's military operations. More news after this break.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure in my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor during February Heart Month, and your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
In 4 days. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
The Trump administration will be briefing Congress tomorrow about the ongoing strikes in Iran. Here's more.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and the Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, will address the House and Senate. That's according to Dylan Johnson, Assistant Secretary of State for Global Public Affairs, speaking to The Hill. Johnson told The Hill the Pentagon spoke to the bipartisan staffs of several national security committees in both chambers yesterday. In a post on X on Saturday, House Speaker Mike Johnson said the group of lawmakers commonly known as the Gang of Eight was briefed last week about potential Iran strikes. That group includes the majority and minority leaders of both houses and the chairs and ranking members of the Senate and House Intelligence Committees.
House Speaker Mike Johnson fully backing President Trump's military operations in Iran. He is planning for a briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration.
I've arranged for a classified briefing for all members of Congress tomorrow at 5 p.m. And we're going to have Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, the CIA Director Ratcliffe, and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Raising Kane. They're all going to brief the House and Senate members, Republican and Democrat, and lots of questions will be asked and answered there in a classified setting. But I think the president has been pretty transparent here.
The House Speaker says he hopes Republicans will be able to defeat a vote on the War Powers Act. He says it would be dangerous to restrict the commander-in-chief from completing the mission. Johnson also says he believes the president is fully within his authority to conduct the current operation. He calls the mission a defensive strike, not a declaration of war. The House Speaker stresses that the Iranian regime has been behind great evil for almost 5 decades, destabilizing the Middle East and undermining U.S. national interests. He also notes he will put back on the House floor another vote to fund the Department of Homeland Security by this Wednesday. The widening conflict in the Middle East is affecting the oil market. Prices are spiking after Iranian attacks disrupted shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Benchmark U.S. crude rose 5.7% to $70 a barrel. Brent crude jumped 6.2% to $77 per barrel. Nearly one-fifth of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and Oman. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil move through the strait every day, along with 100 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Shipping data shows more than 200 vessels, including oil and liquefied gas tankers, are stalled outside the strait. Strikes in the Gulf region continue. Saudi Arabia's state oil giant Aramco shut down a refinery after it was hit by a drone. Eyewitness video shows heavy smoke billowing from the refinery. The complex is on the kingdom's Gulf coast. It houses one of the Middle East's largest refineries with a capacity of 550,000 barrels per day. The Saudi Defense Ministry says 2 drones were intercepted at the facility, with debris causing a limited fire. No injuries were reported. And Qatar Energy has stopped liquefied natural gas production following military attacks on its Ras Laffan industrial complex. The company confirming the halt in a statement today. Earlier, Qatar's defense ministry said a drone targeted a water tank at a power plant inside the complex, while another drone struck an energy facility. The Ras Laffan complex is a key hub for Qatar's energy exports. The suspension of operations could have significant implications for global LNG supplies. President Trump says the U.S. operations in Iran is ahead of schedule. We discussed the U.S. military's capabilities with a former U.S. military personnel after this break. Stay tuned.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
The Middle East conflict is widening today. Israel says it has completed a broad wave of strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, while U.S. forces continue major combat operations against Iran. This comes after joint U.S.-Israeli strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, triggering missile retaliation across the region. We now go to NTD's Washington correspondent, Jack Bradley. Jack, so let's begin with Israel's latest military action in Lebanon. What are we learning about these new strikes?
Right, so the Israeli military says that it completed a broad wave of airstrikes targeting Hezbollah infrastructure over in southern Lebanon. That's just north of Israel. Israeli officials say that 70 targets were hit, including weapons facilities and launch sites. Now, this comes after Hezbollah terrorists fired rockets toward northern Israel. Take a look.
Overnight, the IDF carried out retaliatory strikes against several Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, including command and control centers, launch sites, and senior terrorists. We were ready for this. As part of the preparations for our operation in Iran, the IDF prepared for an attack from Hezbollah, allowing us to carry out a swift response.
Now, Iran has targeted Israel and neighboring countries in this war, hitting not just military targets, but civilian infrastructure. Iran firing missiles at airports, hotels, residences in Israel, but also in Dubai and Bahrain and other neighboring countries. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had visited one of these sites in just west of Jerusalem here, and that was hit by an Iranian missile. Here's what he said at the scene.
When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians. I've said for many years that they threaten not only Israel and not only America. They chant death to Israel, death to America. That's their ultimate target. But I said that they would also target those in between, that they would target Europe.
Now, like Netanyahu said, there is support emerging from Europe, although they may not be contributing to the offensive against Iran. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says many European leaders are on board. Watch.
I really commend what is happening here. Taking out Khamenei, taking out the nuclear capability in Iran, but also taking out the ballistic missile program in Iran. This is crucial. And what I see in Europe, I spoke with all the key European leaders over the weekend, is widespread support for what the president is doing.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain just issued a notice saying that there are certain sites in the country that could become targets by Iran. Don.
And Jack, we're seeing an expansion of U.S. involvement in the region. What's the Pentagon saying?
Well, the Pentagon coming out just now saying that 2 days ago there were 11 ships, Iranian ships, in the Gulf of Oman. Today they have 0, with the U.S. striking out all of them. Pentagon officials say that this is one of hundreds of missions that have already been launched under Operation Epic Fury, delivering tens of thousands of explosives. We saw 3 American F-15 fighter jets that were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti Air Force defense systems during active combat, though. Kuwaiti forces misidentified these American jets as threats. All 6 crew members ejected safely. At the same time, a 4th service member has been confirmed dead from injuries in Operation Epic Fury, U.S. service member. Officials say that 1 Iranian missile slipped through U.S. air defenses and then struck an operations center. U.S. officials also caution that major combat operations are ongoing and more casualties are possible. Take a look.
This is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses.
General Dan Kane also issuing a stern warning to anyone helping Iran. Here he is.
To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail.
And then we know that the biggest backer of the Iranian regime has long been the Chinese Communist Party, accounting for half of the Iranian regime's income. That's according to a congressionally appointed U.S.-China commission up here on Capitol Hill. They reported that in 2024, China bought 90% of Iran's sanctioned oil. Don.
All right, Jack. Thank you. Joining us now to discuss this further is retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, geopolitical strategist at former Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander for the U.S. Army. So good to have you here, Colonel. So President Trump saying Saturday that the Iranian leader could not avoid, quote, U.S. intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems. There was not a thing he or the other leaders that had been killed along with him could do. So talk to us about U.S. air power and military intelligence in this war. What is Iran up against?
Iran is up against something that they've never really truly experienced before, which is being massively overmatched by a much superior military force in the United States and in Israel. And by the way, these two reflect to an extent some of the capabilities that reside within NATO in general also. So what matters about all of that is when you start talking about the ability of the United States, along with some of our allies, to build an intelligence picture of a country like Iran. And by the way, that intelligence picture has been built for a very long time. I've worked on stuff in this country quite a long time ago as well. Not physically in it, but as far as like operational plans and such. We've mapped the entire country for a very long time. And that goes everything from space-based assets to unmanned assets to other things that are out there and sources on the ground that tell us where things are that Iran probably has no idea that we were already aware of. And the bombing campaign, as it's been developing, makes it very clear that they were trying to hide things in numerous distributed locations they probably didn't think we knew about, but they were high on the list and easily and quickly removed at the beginning of this conflict. So when you marry intelligence, accurate intelligence, to operations and a airborne fleet like we are capable of putting together over top of Iran in working with our allies, this is why you see us achieving air dominance over a 90 million person country in the space of about 36 hours.
You said the U.S. has mapped out the country for a very long time. This is incredible to hear. But Colonel, let me get your comments on something else. So a guest that we often have on the show said F-22 and F-35 stealth fighters, along with 2 aircraft carriers and more land-based fighters, are leading the most sophisticated air campaign ever launched by U.S. forces. And she also said the number one metric for success is the destruction of Iran's military power. Do you also see it this way?
Absolutely, and I would add in the Aegis destroyer systems in the that are with those aircraft carrier battle groups. This is the true test of billions of American dollars and hours of technology, experimentation, and many other things, and proving the case that much of it has been well spent for the sake of our military and its dominance on the battlefield. That those statements that you mentioned, I believe, are 100% true and will continue to be proven out over time, because those are just the things that are publicly available, publicly visible. And there are many other assets that are not necessarily so much like that. But all of this coming together so well choreographed is why we're sitting here watching a conflict in Iran and going and should be amazed at how successful we have been as a whole.
Yeah, I am amazed. So, Colonel, there's one question that perhaps is looming over this, a rather important question. It's whether troops will be on the ground in Iran. So based on the goals laid out by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, do you think there will be a need for U.S. troops in Iran?
I don't think so, and I don't think the American people would support that either. We've tried that before in nations like Afghanistan and Iraq, and we know that nation building is not something we need to or should get involved in. That doesn't mean that we don't have ways to help the Iranian people build their own nation and make sure that they own their country and the solutions that can make it what it is capable of being, peaceful and prosperous, whether that be some form of democracy or a government that works for them, but at least isn't a belligerent and spreading terrorism everywhere. That's critical. And how that plays out right now will be determined by the response of the IRGC and the Quds Force, and whether they can coalesce together and actually fight back against their population, should they be able to do so. And the population then becomes much more challenged in trying to take their country back. But we can't solve this with boots on the ground in Iran. That would gain us absolutely nothing.
Okay, so you said earlier this is something Iran has never faced before. How long do you think Iran can sustain this war, militarily speaking? Trump says the operation could take around 4 weeks.
Well, I would give that a graded scale. So how long can they sustain this in an effective manner that actually threatens their neighboring states and has a chance of actually achieving some minor level of victory in here? I would say you're going to know the answer to that within the next 7 to 10 days. And that's when the bombing campaign will have changed already, more than likely, or could be very soon to, which is we strike targets as they reveal themselves rather than hit a pre-planned list of targets that we've known about for years. And that'll be the difference. I think what you're going to see is 4 to 6 weeks from now, you're going to have a really solid answer of what the military campaign looks like, and you can consider it a military victory. The question then becomes, can we win the peace, which in many cases is a much harder thing to do, because now you're dealing with who do you put in Iran and how do you establish a semblance of governance that works for the people there and keeps them from reverting back to where they came from in the first place. That'll be the greatest challenge of all after a military victory is achieved, which I assume at this point is more than likely.
Okay, I want to follow up on one thing you said just now, that Iran has attacked surrounding areas. So how effective have U.S. bases' defense systems been against Iranian missiles and attacks?
Highly effective, and that is a wonderful thing. And that, by the way, that also includes those systems based in other countries like Jordan. We've had allies that are helping with this, and then you add in those carrier strike groups with the Aegis destroyers and all the defensive systems those ships come with. You've got a very layered defense system across where they are, and of course, what Israel has proven to be effective for a very long time, and what's new and really demonstrating its value is now the Iron Beam laser system that's knocking missiles out of the sky up in northern Israel that Hezbollah is launching. So our ships, our bases, and the systems that we have are highly effective. Nothing is perfect, but if they hadn't been effective, this could have gone a lot worse for the Gulf nations and American bases.
Okay, that's good to hear. Colonel, just one final question here. Is there a wild card or that you're watching right now, if any, in this situation?
I would say two wild cards, and the first one I think is a long shot and very unlikely, and that is if somehow Iran was able to develop nuclear capacity without our knowledge. I give that an extremely low percentage, but you have to account for things like that just in case. Second one would be the wild card being, what do the Iranian people do? You have to have momentum when it comes to civilian uprisings against dictators who have a significant sized army and about a 10,000 person core group that works against them. So the first one, be aware of. I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's low chances. The second one, we're all going to be watching that because that's going to be how the tide could really turn and show what Iran can be.
All right, Colonel, it's really good to hear your analysis today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.
Insurance companies are canceling war risk coverage for vessels in the Gulf as the widening Iran conflict disrupted shipping, leaving at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. Here's more on that.
Shipping in the Gulf has been disrupted as the widening Iran conflict has left at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. The strait between Iran and Oman carries around 1/5 of oil consumed globally, as well as large quantities of gas. Vessels in the area were hit as Iran retaliated to U.S. and Israeli strikes. Fears of a prolonged closure have caused oil and European natural gas prices to jump. Brent crude futures were up more than 8% as the conflict triggered multiple oil and gas shutdowns in the Middle East. Shipping data showed at least 150 vessels had dropped anchor in the strait and surrounding waters on Sunday. Iran has said it closed navigation through the critical waterway, prompting key buyers such as Asian governments and refiners to assess oil stockpiles. A U.S.-flagged product tanker was damaged by aerial impacts while berthed in the Gulf, the vessel's owner said in a statement. A projectile also hit a Marshall Islands-flagged product tanker, killing a crew member as the vessel sailed off the coast of Oman, its manager said. As a result, marine insurers are canceling war risk coverage for Iranian, the Gulf, and adjacent waters, according to notices. Ship owners are also deterred from sending vessels to the region, sources and analysts said. Meanwhile, the market will need more ships to load crude from the U.S. and West Africa, a source from a shipping company said.
Tears of joy and relief as Iranians around the world celebrate the death of regime leader Ali Khamenei. The celebrations erupted in major cities in the U.S., Canada, and Europe. Let's take a look.
A moment many Iranians have been waiting for decades. Celebrations taking over the streets of Los Angeles following U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iran on Saturday.
We've been up the whole night following the news. It's just a liberation. We don't look at it as an attack. It's just like World War II when they liberated the countries in Europe. And we are happy that the people of Iran are finally being liberated.
Many are thanking President Trump directly.
I just want to say thank you, Donald Trump. You're a man of your word. You released 90 million hostages. They were hostage for 47 years. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Bibi.
Some attendees say the strikes are the only option left because the people inside of Iran had no other choice to achieve freedom.
My reaction to this attack is excitement and hope for the Iranian people for freedom and democracy in Iran. As you can see, the atmosphere is almost like a party of people being really excited. For the last 3-4 months, we've been demonstrating almost on a weekly basis for what has been happening in the atrocities inside of Iran, really the genocide against the Iranian people. And so we're excited that we may finally have an opportunity to overthrow the Iranian regime and get to a democratic country.
This rally in Toronto, Canada drew over 40,000 people.
Very happy. I'm so happy. You can see all my people, what they do, how they scream, how they dancing today, how they happy, and I'm so happy emotionally from my bottom of heart. I'm so happy today for all people.
Many of the Iranian diaspora say they are proud of the Iranian people inside Iran who stood up for freedom despite grave risks.
We're very, very, very hopeful and joyful and excited for a free Iran. It's kind of an unbelievable feeling. We're kind of in shock, and then we realize that it's actually happening. You know, it's been 47 years of torture and pain for our people and people Iranian outside of Iran.
In Berlin, Germany, thousands of celebrating Iranians marched past the U.S. Embassy in support of Trump's decision to launch the airstrikes.
Incredible. People are infinitely happy. It's not like they're saying our country has been attacked. Maybe 80%, over 80% of people are happy that they will one day be free again.
The joy continues into Sunday as more celebrations pop up across Europe in front of the Iranian embassy in London, on the streets of Paris, and in Brussels.
U.S. Central Command just announced that all 11 ships of the Iranian regime in the Gulf of Oman have been taken out as shipping companies begin diverting vessels away from Middle East. Some operators are choosing to go around the Cape of Good Hope in South America. More news after this break. Don't go away.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality. A timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural, organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Getting prescription glasses from Select Specs is easier than you might think. Select your frames from our £6 range in-house brands or our extensive designer collections. Then enter, upload or email your latest prescription and our website will analyze it and help you select the best lenses and options to suit you. Click to place the order and your new Select Specs glasses are delivered right to your door. Ordering your prescription glasses is as easy as 1, 2, C with Select Specs at selectspecs.com.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump laying out a timeline for Operation Epic Fury. That's as the president vows to avenge the deaths of the 4 American servicemen killed in action. And Israel expands strikes on Beirut. That's after Iran retaliates for the killing of its supreme leader and nearly 50 top officials. The conflict is rapidly escalating across the region. Shipping companies begin diverting vessels away from the Middle East amid the ongoing conflict in Iran. Some operators choosing to go around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. U.S. Central Command just announced that all of the 11 ships of the Iranian regime in the Gulf of Oman have been taken out. Police in Austin, Texas, trying to find out the motives behind Sunday's shooting that left 2 people dead, what they know about the suspect and the victims so far.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And thank you for staying with us. President Trump saying U.S. strikes in Iran are likely to last around 4 to 5 weeks. That's at an East Room event where he's awarding the Medal of Honor to 3 U.S. servicemen. NTD's Washington correspondent Mariotsu attended the ceremony at the White House. Here she is.
Yeah, that's right. President Trump now saying that they projected 4 to 5 weeks originally for these strikes in Iran. But the president also saying that we do have the capability to go longer than that. And he's saying that at a ceremony in the East Room here, awarding 3 U.S. servicemen, 2 of them posthumously, with the Congressional Medal of Honor. And so the people there present in the audience are especially aware of the cost of war. That says we now have 4 U.S. servicemen killed in Operation Epic Fury. Behind me here is the POW MIA flag still flying beneath the American flag in honor of these lost lives. And the White House, though, is saying that this is not a forever war. President Trump saying that the objectives are very clear and laying them out for us. Take a look.
We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
And Don, the president's also pushing for new leadership in Iran. He's telling ABC that the U.S. had identified some possible candidates for that, but that they were all killed in the original attack in Iran. The president also saying that somebody within the Iranian government reached out to him, although he didn't name that person. That's as President Trump's telling Fox yesterday that 48 Iranian officials have been killed. And as for the death of the Ayatollah, President Trump's telling ABC, quote, "I got him before he got me. They tried twice. Well, I got him first." There he's referencing what the Department of Justice believes was a plot to kill President Trump in 2024. Meanwhile, President Trump and War Secretary Pete Hegseth are honoring the 4 U.S. servicemen who were killed in these attacks. Take a look.
Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people.
A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them, taken too soon by Iranian radicals.
And meanwhile, Don, the Pentagon is also pushing back against the narrative coming from some of the mainstream media and some lawmakers that this is a forever war. That's as some members of Congress are using that argument to push for a vote on war powers resolution this week that would limit powers on the operation in Iran. Take a look.
President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes.
And President Trump and the Pentagon still urging the Iranian people to take advantage of this opportunity and take back their government. Secretary of War Hegseth saying in his presser this morning that this is not a so-called, quote, regime change war, but that the regime did in fact change and that there is this opportunity now for the people of Iran. Back to you, Don.
U.S. Central Command says 3 U.S. fighter jets were shot down by Kuwaiti air defenses in a friendly fire incident. Here are the details.
Online video showed a U.S. warplane falling from the sky over Kuwait. A person can be seen parachuting to the ground. U.S. Central Command said Kuwait's air defenses mistakenly shot down 3 American F-15 fighter jets during active combat missions against Iran on Monday. The U.S. and Israel launched a joint assault on Iran over the weekend with missiles and airstrikes targeting Iran's leaders, commanders, and military installations. Iran launched retaliatory strikes on neighboring Gulf states in response. The U.S. described Monday's incident as an apparent friendly fire episode. CENTCOM said all 6 crew members from the 3 jets ejected from the aircraft safely were recovered and are in stable condition. It said that Kuwait had acknowledged the incident and that an investigation was underway. Kuwait had intercepted hostile drones earlier on the same day. In a separate incident, smoke was seen rising from the vicinity of the U.S. Embassy compound in Kuwait City. Witnesses told Reuters fire trucks and ambulances were in the area. There were no responses to requests for comment on the embassy incident from the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait or from the U.S. State Department.
And a major new front in the operation. Israel today saying it's expanding operations to include the terrorist group Hezbollah in Lebanon. Lebanon's state news agency reports at least 31 people killed and 149 injured in initial strikes. Footage shows hundreds of people crossing the border as the conflict widens. Hezbollah says it launched missiles and drones toward Israel in retaliation for the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, Israel says it's keeping all options open for a possible ground invasion in Lebanon. And Lebanon now says it's banning Hezbollah from any military or security activities. The government is urging the group to hand over its weapons. In a statement today, the prime minister condemned the rocket launch claimed by the terror group, calling it a violation of cabinet decisions. The Council of Ministers stressed that the decision of war and peace rests only with the Lebanese state. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it struck senior Hezbollah figures and command centers in Beirut and Tyre. It says the strikes were in response to rockets fired into Israel and that it's prepared for a multi-front scenario. Lebanon's prime minister responds.
To ensure that Lebanon does not get dragged into any conflict in the tense regional circumstances, the cabinet requests the mediator states to achieve a clear and final commitment from the Israeli side to stop all its assaults on all of Lebanese territory.
The Department of State is urging Americans in Lebanon to leave immediately. The embassy says the security situation in Lebanon is volatile and unpredictable. Americans are advised not to travel to Lebanon. Those who remain should prepare emergency plans and be ready to shelter in place if conditions worsen. The embassy says Americans should not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is targeting tyrants. He was at the site of an Iranian missile strike west of Jerusalem earlier today. Here he is, drawing a contrast between Israel and Iran after yesterday's attack killed 9 people.
This is the 3rd day of the Operation Roaring Lion, the operation the Israeli army and the state of Israel set out to, with our great friends, the United States of America and President Trump, to thwart existential threats to Israel and great threats to America and the entire world. When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians.
Netanyahu added that a nuclear-armed Iran would pose a threat to the entire world. The war in the Middle East continues as the Israeli and U.S. bombing campaign against Iran intensifies. Iran and its allies are targeting locations in Israel and neighboring Gulf states. Tehran has long threatened to expand the conflict into a regional war if attacks continued. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates said Iran has launched more than 170 ballistic missiles toward the country since the start of the conflict. The country's defense ministry said it had destroyed 161 of the missiles and intercepted several hundred Iranian drones. The ministry condemned the attacks, calling them a flagrant violation of its national sovereignty and international law. UAE officials said 3 people had been killed while 68 suffered minor injuries. Qatar said its air force had shot down 2 Iranian bombers and intercepted 9 ballistic missiles. House Speaker Mike Johnson planning for a classified briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration. The House Speaker showing full support for the president's military operations. Middle East tensions are hitting the oil market, prices spiking after Iranian attacks disrupted the shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. More news after this break. Stay with us.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiang Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids. I was finally following my dreams. Just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that helped save my life. When you give $19 a month with your credit card, we'll send you this special t-shirt to show you're a part of our community of monthly donors.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. Your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
For more on the situation in Iran, joining us now to discuss is Amala Khan, senior White House correspondent for the Epoch Times, and we have Masih Ariani, reporter for the Epoch Times Persian edition. So to start off, I want to have a conversation about President Trump here and his message to Iranians on day one of the operation. I brought a clip here with me. Let's just take a look at that quickly.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
So, Emel, Trump says freedom is at hand. What does he want for the Iranian people?
Don, thanks for having me. It's great to see you. President Trump made it very clear that the government, the U.S. government, is providing the opportunity for people of Iran to take back their government. He's not going to be, doing it himself. He's not going to put. It's not. They made it very clear that it's not the U.S. job or the president's job to select the leader, the next leader. But he said that in two messages that he made in a video, he directly spoke with Iranian people and told them to seize the moment and take back their country, take back their government. It's really unclear at the moment how the U.S. will help. He also said that America will be with you. And he said that he will be there to help, but it's not very clear how the U.S. will be involved. And just recently, we heard from the president saying that they are looking at other options to help Iranians, but it's not going to be happening soon. He also made it clear that the operation will escalate, and so he warned Iranians to stay sheltered at this moment. But then he also asked them to seize the moment when the operation ends.
All right, Masih, let me go to you now. What do you know whether if the president's message is resonating with Iranians inside Iran?
Hi, Don. Thanks for having me. Yes, it does resonate with the majority of people because especially after the regime killed over 30,000 of protesters back in January in a very short time, the country was in a shock, but at the same time, the majority realized that they may not be able to move forward with this protest on their own, and they need an intervention and foreign countries' aids in order to tip the balance toward themselves. Also, after that, the protest and the situation kind of went into a place of no return. So the lines were crossed for people, and they realized that there is no future with this regime for them except like misery. So, and that's why both from inside and not just inside of Iran, also the Iranian diaspora outside of Iran, they're all been chanting and asking U.S. and other Western countries to help them because there seems to be no other way possible for them to move forward.
So, Emel, can you talk to us about if there's any systems in place to ensure that the mechanisms of the current regime doesn't translate over or carry over to the next regime or government?
It's not clear at the moment because understandably, the president doesn't want to work with this regime. It's not like Venezuela, where you have the existing regime working at least for the short term friendly with the president and his team, and he seized Venezuela as a template. But I think he also understands the reality of Iran, and he doesn't want to work with a regime that is a terrorist. He calls a terrorist government, and so he doesn't want to be dealing with them. Is there a mechanism? He always says that I have a plan, but I'm not going to be, talking about this publicly. So he does believe that he has a plan, and he knows that what he wants to do. At least that's what he is communicating to the press. But I think for the moment, we still do not know how he will be involved, how the administration will be involved when it comes to helping Iranian people.
So just quickly, Emel, do we know right now so far who is wanted as the next leader of Iran? Just very quickly.
That's a great question. He's also wondering who's going to be the next leader. He knows that he expresses that 49 leaders have been killed, and he is also surprised by the pace of the operation. He praises that the U.S. and Israeli strikes were ahead of the schedule because he was told that the operation might take 4 weeks to take out all these leadership. But he's impressed that they have been, killed in the first hour, and so that's what he's saying. But the next who is going to be leading is a question mark, and he is also saying that there's like this unemployment line, and there are not many people who can be trusted to take over that. It seems like the Iranian Iranians are scrambling to refill the ranks of the regime, but it's not easy, and the president sees that as a weakness.
Okay, so Massey, same question to you. Emel says it's a question mark about who's the next leader. What do we know about what Iranians would want as a new leader and government?
So now the majority of people and Iranian are now united behind the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, and he also promised that he will have the power. He has the power, and there is the capability for him to lead the country into a transitional state where the country, after the fall of this regime, he can lead the country to make sure that the stability, there is no chaos, and that the transitional process goes smoothly until to get to a point of a free democratic election. And that's what people want, and that's what he has been saying that will be the process after the fall of this regime. So to just maintaining the country after the collapse and keeping the order and the essential services, everything that people need for how many months needed, up to 1 year even, and then have the free election and the referendum so that people can choose the type of regime and the system that they want, whether it's monarchy, kingdom, republic, that's really up to the people. So for many people, they may want him as the next leader, but for now, the talks are not about who will the leader be. Then now the focus is to make sure this regime goes, and then the transition and the process will take place until a referendum, and then people will choose what and who they want.
Okay, let's go to a new topic here. Emel, the administration is saying this isn't a forever war. The president gave a projected timeline of 4 to 5 weeks. What is the administration doing to ensure Americans see it as reasonable, necessary, and just? Because it may be easy for some Americans to wonder, why are we doing this?
That's correct, and I think that's why we're seeing the administration officials are making, today we saw Secretary Hegseth giving a press briefing about the operation, and the president has been speaking about it. He's issuing video messages and also speaking directly to reporters on the phone, and he's trying to explain why this operation is needed and why it's important to have this preemptive strike, because they have framed this as a preemptive, strike to avoid, escalation or avoid first attack from Iran, and they made the case that it's important to eliminate this threat. And I think the president sees that this is an opportunity for the administration at the moment, because they see that Iran has been weakened, as well as Hezbollah, its proxies in the region. This is a very weak moment for them, and I think that's why the administration is feeling that this is the right moment to do this, and they want to basically build an Iran, not build, but maybe form a government, or help form a government that is friendly in the region to bring a peace in the region. That's what they have been saying so far.
So Massey, I think it would be helpful if you could just talk to us about the Iranian regime here. Talk to us about what life was like for the Iranian people before and after the current Iranian regime took over.
That's a good question. Well, before this regime, there was this Pahlavi kingdom, which was the father of the current crown prince. So the king was Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. And during that time, Iran was a well-respected country in the international community, free trades with West, East, and the economy was way more prosperous than now. And also Iran has a significant geopolitical situation, and it has been the case for thousands of years, where Iran has been the kind of one of the main hubs of connecting East to the West. So it also plays a big role in this and for the safety of the region. And Iran was one of the main allies of US back then in the region, and bringing safety and stability in the region, and freedom. And there was freedom way more. But now after this regime took over, they try to replace the whole identity and culture of Iran, which was for thousands of years, with their own radical Marxist Islamist culture and identity, which was not something that people could have or could take. And the freedom was gone over these radical rules. And then also because they had this like jihad philosophy in a way, the country got isolated more and more over decades. And only they could rely heavily on other dictatorship countries such as China or Russia to have like economical ties and relation with. And also, in many cases, Iran's current regime is following the steps of the Chinese Communist Party. So there's one state, and Iran is also being run by this IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard. And for people to grow a business and have like free opportunities is almost impossible. If you grow or if you want to grow either economically or in any way, you have to become part of the system, or else they won't allow you to. So there's oppression in many ways, even for how you wear, how for women to wear outside. In every aspect of life, people are being controlled and micromanaged in a very severe way. And so this regime, as I said, closely being following CCP in terms of controlling the country, but in an Islamic way.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. Now, Emel, we're seeing responses from different Middle East nations, as you're aware, to this war. One of those countries is Turkey. What can you tell us about Turkey and how it fits into the picture?
Yes, Turkey is a neighbors Iran, and it's a close ally of Iran and U.S. as well. So it's in the middle, and we also know that Turkey is a NATO ally, and it has American base. It's the only American base that hasn't been hit yet. It's in Adana. It's one of the largest cities in Turkey near Adana. It's called Injuring, American Air Base, but it's also NATO base. And there's also one in the center of Turkey. It's another NATO air base. And Iran might strike these two facilities, but I think it will be a big gamble. That's what people are saying in Washington. And I think they don't want to, I think Turkey doesn't want to deal with Iran, and Iran doesn't want to deal with Turkey. That's my understanding. But also today, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made a speech where he harshly criticized the United States and Israel again because of this operation, and he said that Turkey is ready to broker peace, and he criticized it. He didn't condemn the operation, but he said that Turkey has been neighboring Iran for 400 years, and we have close ties, and so we don't want to be in a war with Iran. So that's what the message was, and I think at this stage everyone is looking at Turkey and how Turkey will respond if it's hit. And I think at this moment I don't see that as happening. But it's interesting that it's the only American ally at the region which has American base hasn't been hit yet.
Okay, we'll keep a lookout on that. But Masih, just one final question here. You know, there's concern about Iranian sleeper cells in the U.S. With FBI Director Kash Patel telling counterterrorism and intelligence teams to be on high alert. Just explain for us, finally, how does Iran's sleeper cell strategy work?
Well, I think in this aspect, also Iran follows the Chinese Communist Party's footstep. So, for example, on the, let's say, peaceful side, CCP has the United Front to try to lobby with the politicians, and Iran also implemented something called NAYAC, which was a group of like a think tankers of the people related to the regime to have influence in the US and to the politicians. But that's not just the one thing. At the same time, they are recruiting agents, usually from other nationalities, so that the tie to the Iran's regime would not be so obvious. And then they hire them like through the Iran's consulate or other centers that they might have in foreign countries to do the operations or their dirty work, let's say, that they want to have in other countries. So for example, in Canada, there are so many, allegedly, of course, it cannot be confirmed, so many agents of the IRGC inside of Canada, and especially because it's close to USA, and they just train them and just have them for when it's needed to, if they can, they do some operation inside foreign lands.
Okay, let's leave it there for today. Thank you both for shedding some light on this situation. Pleasure speaking with both of you, Emel and Massey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Insurance companies are canceling war risk coverage for vessels in the Gulf as the widening Iran conflict disrupted shipping, leaving at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. Here's more on that.
Shipping in the Gulf has been disrupted as the widening Iran conflict has left at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. The strait between Iran and Oman carries around 1/5 of oil consumed globally, as well as large quantities of gas. Vessels in the area were hit as Iran retaliated to U.S. and Israeli strikes. Fears of a prolonged closure have caused oil and European natural gas prices to jump. Brent crude futures were up more than 8% as the conflict triggered multiple oil and gas shutdowns in the Middle East. Shipping data showed at least 150 vessels had dropped anchor in the strait and surrounding waters on Sunday. Iran has said it closed navigation through the critical waterway, prompting key buyers such as Asian governments and refiners to assess oil stockpiles. A U.S.-flagged products tanker was damaged by aerial impacts while berthed in the Gulf, the vessel's owner said in a statement. A projectile also hit a Marshall Islands-flagged product tanker, killing a crew member as the vessel sailed off the coast of Oman, its manager said. As a result, marine insurers are canceling war risk coverage for Iranian, the Gulf, and adjacent waters, according to notices. Ship owners are also deterred from sending vessels to the region, sources and analysts said. Meanwhile, the market will need more ships to load crude from the U.S. and West Africa, a source from a shipping company said.
U.S. Central Command just announces that all of the 11 ships of the Iranian regime in the Gulf of Oman have been all taken out. And the Iran war is affecting U.S. partners across multiple continents. Iran attacking a British military base in Cyprus, dragging a NATO member into the conflict. Countries in the Middle East are pausing their much-needed energy production. More news after this break. Stay with us.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun returns to David Koch Theater, March 25th through April 12th. Get your tickets now at shenyun.com.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis. Many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community, and demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
The Middle East conflict is widening. Today, Israel says it has completed a broad wave of strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, while U.S. forces continue major combat operations against Iran. This comes after joint U.S.-Israeli strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, targeting missile retaliation across the region. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley brings us more.
So the Israeli military says that it completed a broad wave of airstrikes targeting Hezbollah infrastructure over in southern Lebanon. That's just north of Israel. Israeli officials say that 70 targets were hit, including weapons facilities and launch sites. Now, this comes after Hezbollah terrorists fired rockets toward northern Israel. Take a look.
Overnight, the IDF carried out retaliatory strikes against several Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, including command and control centers, launch sites, and senior terrorists. We were ready for this. As part of the preparations for our operation in Iran, the IDF prepared for an attack from Hezbollah, allowing us to carry out a swift response.
Now, Iran has targeted Israel and neighboring countries in this war, hitting not just military targets, but civilian infrastructure. Iran firing missiles at airports, hotels, residences in Israel, but also in Dubai and Bahrain and other neighboring countries. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had visited one of these sites in just west of Jerusalem here, and that was hit by an Iranian missile. Here's what he said at the scene.
When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians. I've said for many years that they threaten not only Israel and not only America. They chant death to Israel, death to America. That's their ultimate target. But I said that they would also target those in between, that they would target Europe.
Now, like Netanyahu said, there is support emerging from Europe, although they may not be contributing to the offensive against Iran. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says many European leaders are on board. Watch.
I really commend what is happening here. Taking out Khamenei, taking out the nuclear capability in Iran, but also taking out the ballistic missile program in Iran. This is crucial. And what I see in Europe, I spoke with all the key European leaders over the weekend, is widespread support for what the president is doing.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain just issued a notice saying that there are certain sites in the country that could become targets by Iran. Don.
And Jack, we're seeing an expansion of U.S. involvement in the region. What's the Pentagon saying?
Well, the Pentagon coming out just now saying that 2 days ago there were 11 ships, Iranian ships, in the Gulf of Oman. Today they have 0, with the U.S. striking out all of them. Pentagon officials say that this is one of hundreds of missions that have already been launched under Operation Epic Fury, delivering tens of thousands of explosives. We saw 3 American F-15 fighter jets that were mistakenly shot down by Kuwaiti Air Force defense systems during active combat, though. Kuwaiti forces misidentified these American jets as threats. All 6 crew members ejected safely. At the same time, A fourth service member has been confirmed dead from injuries in Operation Epic Fury, U.S. service member. Officials say that one Iranian missile slipped through U.S. air defenses and then struck an operations center. U.S. officials also caution that major combat operations are ongoing and more casualties are possible. Take a look.
This is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses.
General Dan Kane also issuing a stern warning to anyone helping Iran. Here he is.
To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail.
And then we know that the biggest backer of the Iranian regime has long been the Chinese Communist Party, accounting for half of the Iranian regime's income. That's according to a congressionally appointed U.S.-China commission up here on Capitol Hill. They reported that in 2024, China bought 90% of Iran's sanctioned oil. Don.
Israeli Defense Forces says it killed Hezbollah's intelligence chief in an overnight strike in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. Joining us now for insights into the reach of Iran's proxy networks is Tammuz Itai, geopolitical columnist and former Israeli Air Force personnel. Tammuz, thank you for joining us today. So can you just, before we start into the topic, can you just talk to us about what people there are doing to protect themselves, perhaps? I understand you're sheltering as well. So just talk to us about the situation there.
Well, since Saturday morning, Israelis have been going in and out of bomb shelters. Most newer buildings have them built in, like mine. But maybe about 30-40% of Israelis live in older buildings, and then they have to run out to community bomb shelters, which is more difficult. Unfortunately, Israelis are used to it, whether it's from the 12-day war with Iran in the summer or just the ongoing war with Hamas. So people more or less know what to do, but still it's unnerving to some people, and older people with children. It's not easy, but we've been drilled and we kind of know how to do it, but it's still not easy when you're at it. And the sirens start on Saturday, which was the heaviest barrage so far from Iran. Basically every half hour I would come here and close the big metal door. Today there were fewer barrages that we had to go to the bomb shelter. We don't know how long it's going to take, days or weeks. Trump said 4 or 5 weeks, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's totally an unimaginable situation to the regular American that people over there are going through. And like you said, it's unfortunate that Israelis are used to this. But I wanted to ask you, Tammuz, what impact will the loss of the intelligence chief have on Iran-backed Hezbollah? If you could just talk to us about this.
Well, as you may remember, back almost a year ago, Israel basically decapitated all the heads of Hezbollah. And shortly after, there were new heads of Hezbollah, just like we decapitated Iranian leadership, and now there is new leadership. So the question is how big the bench is for Hezbollah or for the Iranian military and political leadership. If they have more competent people to just step up, then it will be like a morale hit. If they don't, it may be more serious. But it's important to note that this is the first time really since September 2024 when Israel decimated much of Hezbollah's force that they actually participated again at shooting missiles and drones and other things at Israel. Because the climate in Lebanon has changed dramatically since last year, meaning a lot of Lebanese political forces don't really like Hezbollah because it brought so much death and destruction to Lebanon, and still they do it. So that's an interesting question that we don't have an answer to, whether it's like a last-ditch effort to help Iran, help them survive, or some sort of loyalty or some sort of renewed treaty that they have with Iran, that they dare defy Lebanon, the Lebanese people, and attack Israel again.
But Tammuz, as you're aware, along with Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran's proxy networks include Houthis in Yemen and Shia militants in Iraq and Syria, and the White House says more Americans have been killed by Iran than any other terrorist regime on earth. While I have you here, can I just ask you, how do these proxy networks operate? Do they take direct orders from Iran?
Well, it's kind of a combination of two things. It's like birds of a feather flock together, and when you have a sponsor that gives you money and weapons and training, you need to listen to them. Some of those were spawned by Iran directly, and some of them kind of emerged organically, and then they had similar views, similar ideologies, and they sought Iranian help, or Iran decided that they will be nice proxies and started to support them. So it doesn't have to be like a clear command and control structure. It's more like a strategic network where they'd better follow Iranian orders on the things that are important to the Iranians, or they might lose the support they've been getting from them.
By your opinion, could attacks by these proxy groups spill out and widen the conflict in nearby regions?
Well, I mean, what Iran has done in the past couple of days is practically widened the conflict to all the neighboring countries, because it hasn't just attacked Israel and American assets, it attacked all the Gulf states. It attacked a British military base in Cyprus, it attacked Jordan. So I don't know how many more countries these proxies can involve that are not already involved. I think originally, until a couple of years ago, part of the idea was that when these proxies attack, Iran has some sort of deniability. So you can't, if you attack Iran directly after Hezbollah attacks you, you're escalating. But since the past year and a half or 2 years, when Iran started directly attacking Israel, that deniability, that gap that they used is practically gone. So yes, they can use these proxies to have more attack vectors on various US and Israeli allies, but I'm not sure it can widen the conflict, because it's by their own hand they've kind of engulfed everybody and maybe caused something that they didn't intend to, which means some Gulf states and Saudi Arabia are now siding with more officially and directly with the US rather than staying back, and Britain, which was in the beginning kind of trying to stay out of it, now joining the fight, and France. So I think these proxies will serve a less important role because Iran has directly attacked all the neighboring countries already.
Okay, so you're saying they have a less important role, but do they have a plan here? Do they choose their targets on purpose? You're saying that the war has widened because of these attacks.
Well, I think that's a question not just for Iran and the Iranian proxies, but also for the US and Israel. Before you start a conflict, you have a time to prepare a big ledger of targets. And it seems like Israel and the US have done an excellent job of doing that, and I'm sure Iran and its proxies have done their homework as well. But once conflicts start and things get dynamic, at a certain point you run out of the targets you prepared ahead of time, and then you got to start collecting intelligence while you are fighting, and it gets a little more difficult with a protracted conflict, not just for Iran, but also for the US and Israel and other allied forces. I'm sure Hezbollah has a target list and Iran has a target list of places in Israel, in the Gulf, and American assets. I think Iran there may be weapons that Iran has yet to introduce to the battle because they may be an escalation. We'll have to see if that happens and what happens. The Trump administration has said very clearly that it will avenge the death of a few soldiers. So anything bigger might bring bigger vengeance. So I'm sure the Iranian new leaders are considering that.
Right. Okay, Tammuz, thank you for speaking with us. The Secretary of State in the U.S., Marco Rubio, is talking to the media right now. We're going to turn our attention to that.
I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act. Going back to the purpose. The purpose of this is to destroy that missile capability. Why does Iran want that ballistic missile capability? What they are trying to do and have been trying to do for a very long time is build a conventional weapons capability as a shield where they can hide behind. Meaning, there would come a point where they have so many conventional missiles, so many drones, and it can inflict so much damage that no one can do anything about their nuclear program. That is what they were trying to do, is put themselves in a place of immunity where the damage they could inflict on the region would be so high that no one can do anything about their nuclear program or their nuclear ambitions. They are producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month. Compare that to the 6 or 7 interceptors that can be built a month. They can build 100 of these a month, not to mention the thousands of one-way attack drones that they also have. They've been doing this for a very long time, and by the way, they've been doing it under sanction. You see the attacks they're conducting right now? They're attacking airports, they're attacking hotels, they're hitting not just military bases, they're attacking our embassies directly, they're attacking facilities that have nothing to do with war or with military, and that's a weekend Iran. That's in Iran despite years of sanction. Imagine a year from now, or a year and a half from now, the capabilities they would have to inflict damage on us. It's an unacceptable risk, especially in the hands of a regime that's run by radical clerics. The Ayatollah was a radical cleric. That entire regime is led by radical clerics who don't make geopolitical decisions. They make decisions on the basis of theology, their view of theology, which is an apocalyptic one. That has to be taken very seriously as well. So that was the purpose for what this operation is all about. That's what it's focused on. As the President said earlier today, it is on or ahead of schedule. I will defer to the Department of War to discuss the progress being made at a tactical level, but it was the right decision and an important decision for the safety and security of the world. No. There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, There would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life. What? No, well, let me two things I would say. Number one is, no matter what, ultimately this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen because Iran in about a year or a year and a half would cross the line of immunity, meaning they would have so many short-range missiles, so many drones, that no one could do anything about it because they could hold the whole world hostage. Look at the damage they're doing now. And this is a weakened Iran. Imagine a year from now. So that had to happen. Obviously, we were aware of Israeli intentions and understood what that would mean for us, and we had to be prepared to act as a result of it. But this had to happen no matter what.
Secretary, President Trump said overnight that his top choices to now run Iran were killed in the strikes. Does the United States have a firm plan for how they intend to handle this power vacuum in Iran to ensure that an Iranian hardliner does not take power?
So two things, and two things can be true. Number one is our mission and our focus is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities and their ability to manufacture them, as well as the threat posed by their Navy to global shipping. That's our objective. That said, we would not mind, we would not be heartbroken, and we hope that the Iranian people can overthrow this government and establish a new future for that country. We would love for that to be possible. But the objective of this mission is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities and of their naval capabilities.
How do the United States, Mr. Secretary,
yep.
Mr. Secretary, so are you saying, based on that, are you saying that there is no responsibility, no plan for the U.S. to at least play a role in whatever government comes next?
We might. We'll see how circumstances play out. But I'm telling you what the objectives of this operation are. The objectives of this operation are to destroy their ballistic missile capability and make sure they can't rebuild it, and make sure that they can't hide behind that to have a nuclear program. That's the objective of the mission. That said, abundantly clear, we would love for there to be an Iran that's not governed by radical Shia clerics. As I've said myself repeatedly for years, the leadership of that country does not reflect the people of Iran, and I think that's been pretty apparent in the protests that you've seen. If there's something we can do to help them down the road, we'd obviously be open to it, but that's not the objective. The objective of this mission is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities.
Regime change has not gone well for the United States.
The what now?
Regime change has not gone well for the United States for many, many decades. How do you assure the American public that things will not get worse for the next regime that comes in there and replaces the
Well, we would love to see this regime be replaced. And ultimately, as the president has said, he calls... No, but let me finish my answer. As the president has said, he would love for the people of Iran to use this as an opportunity to rise up and remove these leaders. They've been wanting to remove them from a long time. We've seen successive waves of protests, and we've seen them slaughter people. Okay? But the objective of this mission is to make sure they don't have these weapons that can threaten us and our allies in the region. That's why we're doing what we're doing now. And while we would love to see a new regime, the bottom line is no matter who governs that country a year from now, they're not going to have these ballistic missiles and they're not going to have these drones to threaten us. That's the objective of this mission, is to deny them the ability to use ballistic missiles to threaten their neighbors, to threaten our bases, to threaten our presence in the region, and ultimately as a shield behind which they can do whatever they want with their nuclear weapons ambition. We were not going to let them hide behind that, and that's why this was such a critical mission to undertake now while they were at their weakest point, and not a year from now where they could inflict even more damage and perhaps already be behind that point of immunity. Go right here behind. Go ahead, you and then you. Yes.
Your critics in Congress have said that they should have a role, they should be able to weigh in here, and there are going to be war powers resolutions votes in Congress later this week. Why not notify Congress ahead of this and just Congress?
Well, we did. We notified Congress. I mean, we notified the Gang of Eight. We notified congressional leadership. There's no law that requires us to do that. The law says we have to notify them 48 hours after beginning hostilities. We've done that. I think the notification went today. But we did notify members of Congress in advance. But we can't notify 535 members of Congress. And, well, the Congress can vote on whatever they want, but there's no law that requires us to do that. And I want to say something, because I see people on TV. Look, that's fine. If they want to take a war powers vote, they can do that. They've done that. They've done that a bunch of times. But there's no, people keep saying that there's no law that requires the president to have done anything with regards to this. To begin with, no presidential administration has ever accepted the War Powers Act as constitutional. Not Republican presidents, not Democratic presidents. That said, we have followed the notification at 48 hours, and we're here today. I've done more Gang of Eight briefings than I got in the 4 years that Biden was president and I was a member of the Gang of Eight. All of that said, we've complied with the law 100%. and we're going to continue to comply with it. We've done the notification, and we officially to Congress, but we did notify members of Congress. We just can't notify 535 people. That's not possible, but we did the Gang of Eight twice. I briefed them last week, and then I called them the night before the operation. Yeah, I've seen those reports. I would refer you, not because I'm not trying to answer your question, but I don't want to get it wrong. The Department of War would be investigating that if that was our strike, and I would refer your question to them, and I'll make sure they're aware that you have that question. But we'd like to know. Well, clearly, the United States would not deliberately target a school. Our objectives are missiles, both the ability to manufacture them and the ability to launch them, and the one-way attract drones. That would be our focus, and that's what we would be focused on. We would have no interest and, frankly, no incentive to target civilian infrastructure. The Iranians are, on the other hand, targeting civilian infrastructure. You guys have seen it. I'm sure you've seen it. They're hitting hotels. They're hitting embassies. They're hitting airports. They're hitting oil infrastructure. Well, it'd be very tragic, but I can't speak to the details behind it because I just don't have it. It would be a tragic outcome if it's happened. I don't have the details as to what led to it. But what is clear is that the United States would not deliberately target a school. They are, on the other hand, deliberately targeting civilians, as you've seen, because you know why? They are a terroristic regime. They sponsor terrorism and they participate in terrorism. Mine.
What's your message to Americans who are concerned about rising energy prices given the spiking of oil prices today?
Yes, and we knew that going in would be a factor, and so we have a program in place that will begin to be implemented by Secretary Wright, Secretary Bessent. We talked about it last night, again, about this program. We talked this morning, and starting tomorrow, you will see us rolling out those phases to try to mitigate against that. Obviously, markets are going to be reacting to news about what's happening. And again, a reminder, think about it, okay? This terroristic regime, led by radical clerics, has the ability, potentially, to shut off 20% of global energy. That's the kind of leverage they have because of their Navy. We're going to destroy their Navy. But there is a plan in place. We anticipated this could be an issue, and Secretary Wright and Bessent will begin to roll out those steps starting tomorrow to mitigate against the impact that could have. What time? I got to do this briefing, so I got a couple more. Yeah. Well, we don't. Let me say two things about it. Number one, the president always has the options to undertake whatever operations he decides to do as the commander-in-chief. That said, we believe the objective that we have set for this mission, which is the destruction of their ballistic missile capabilities, both launch capability and manufacturing, can be achieved without ground forces. Right now, we're not postured for ground forces, but obviously the president has those options. He's never going to rule out anything. But right now, our focus is on the destruction of their ballistic missile launchers, their ballistic missile stockpiles, and their ballistic missile manufacturing capability, as well as their one-way attract drones and their Navy, because of the threat it poses to global shipping.
How long is
All right, I can only do one more. Right there in the middle. Yes, sir. No, not at this time. I mean, look, we always have people that reach out from inside of governments. You don't know if they're authorized to reach out or not. They're suffering a tremendous amount of damage. Honestly, again, I'm not going to give away the details of our tactical efforts, but the hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now. Someone was screaming, how long will it take? I don't know how long it'll take. We have objectives. We will do this as long as it takes to achieve those objectives, and we will achieve those objectives. The world will be a safer place when we're done with this operation. All right? Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And that was U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio telling reporters that the next phase of the attack on Iran will be far worse than the current attack, and clarifying the objective of the U.S. operation here is to destroy Iran's missile capability, its ability to manufacture missiles and its stockpile and destroy its Navy. Because as the Secretary reiterated, if the missile program were allowed to continue, Iran would be able to hold the world hostage and nobody will be able to do a thing about its nuclear capabilities. Okay, we're bringing back now Tammuz Itai for further comments on this. He's a geopolitical columnist and former Israeli Air Force personnel. So, Tammuz, can I just get your comments on what Secretary Rubio said? Do you see it this way, that if the attack doesn't happen now on Iran, further down the line, nobody will be able to do anything about Iran's nuclear capabilities?
Well, obviously, I don't have access to the data that Secretary Rubio has, but it seems like Iran has been rebuilding, and it makes sense that they would try to reach a state where their missile capabilities, whether it's to prevent air attacks or to attack neighboring countries, will have reached a certain stage where the cost exacted on whoever tries to attack them would be too enormous. So it makes sense in that way that this would be the operational logic behind this operation in the way that Secretary Rubio has described it.
So, Tammuz, what could a toppled Iranian regime mean for stability and peace in the region? Does that mean less sheltering, at least for Israelis?
Well, I mean, I think in the beginning of this operation, a lot of people were a little bit confused by Trump's statements. I saw a lot of journalists saying that he's saying two things at the same time. One, that the operation is military, like what Rubio said now, and at the same time, he was talking about regime change. And I think it's very important that Rubio clarified what was clear, at least to me and some other observers, that from the point of view of the United States, the operation is meant for those military objectives. However, that operation creates the best ever conditions for opposition forces in Iran to topple their regime and start a new one. And I think most Israelis and the American administration both hope that that would happen. However, the question is what happens, right? Because when a regime falls, the question is what comes next? Is something better, something worse, or a disintegration? So disintegration of the country, I think, is less likely. In Iraq, that's what happened when Saddam was taken out, because Iraq was a very new country created by basically the British and the French. After World War II, it had three separate populations, the Sunni, the Shia, the Kurds, and they were held as a country by the Saddam regime. And when he was toppled, the country was disintegrated, and then ISIS came, and then Iran came. However, Iran, or Persia as it was called, has a very long history. It's really a country. It's been a country for a long time. So the question is, who comes next? If we look at the example of Syria, where a former terrorist became the president endorsed by the United States, basically, I think the bar is pretty low in terms of geopolitics. You don't necessarily need to have the best person. You just need to have someone who manages to take control and will work with you and not terrorize their own people too much and not terrorize other countries. I think there is hope that either elements within the regime, like within the Iranian Revolutionary Guard or other elements, at some point will decide that it's not worth it anymore to support their clerics and it's better to take over, either on their own or in cooperation with different opposition groups. Perhaps something else will happen. So I think that whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, long-term kind of depends on who comes next. But I think that with the overbearing power that the United States and Israel and other countries are bringing to the region, there is probably a good chance that whoever comes next might be more amenable to what the United States needs and Israel needs. And that will bring a lot more than just not Israel. Israel is not rushing to bomb shelters, because Iran, as we discussed before, Secretary Rubio's press conference, has spawned a network of proxies, and all of them were supported by it. And if that regime stops supporting them, they will basically cease to exist. And over the past decades, the Iranian regime has been the major factor of destabilization in the Middle East. And funnily enough, it itself became a proxy of the CCP. which also uses the same Soviet theory of creating proxies and engaging them. So that in turn will also hurt the CCP because one of its proxies will be gone, and a pretty important one. So I think there is hope for much more than less war. It could lead to a new era of prosperity between the Arab countries and Israel and the new regime in Iran. That's obviously the optimistic scenario. And there are a lot of forces, whether it's the CCP or the current regime in Iran and other actors, that will do whatever they can to prevent that from happening. So I think that's why the U.S. administration has not said we're just going in for a couple of days. It may take longer, because it may really take longer, not necessarily to topple the regime, but to weaken it enough so that it can never do what it has been doing for the past decades.
Right, to weaken it so it cannot carry out its intended plans. Okay, Tammuz, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts today. Very intriguing to hear it. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
The Middle East conflict is widening today. Israel says it has completed a broad wave of strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, while U.S. forces continue major combat operations against Iran. This comes after joint U.S.-Israeli strikes killed Iran's supreme leader, triggering missile retaliation across the region. We now go to NTD's Washington correspondent, Jack Bradley. Jack, so let's begin with Israel's latest action in Lebanon. What are we learning about these new strikes?
Yeah, Donna, I want to get to that, but first we have some breaking news. First, U.S. Central Command confirming now that 6 U.S. service members have been killed in action. Now, they say that U.S. forces recently recovered the remains of 2 previously unaccounted for service members from a facility that was struck during Iran's initial attacks in the region. That said, major combat operations are continuing. So we have 6 U.S. service members confirmed dead now. The Israeli military says that it completed a broad wave of strikes targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. These are terrorists in southern Lebanon. Israeli officials say that more than 70 targets were hit, including weapons facilities and launch sites. Now, this comes after the Hezbollah terrorists fired rockets toward northern Israel. Take a look.
Overnight, the IDF carried out retaliatory strikes against several Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, including command and control centers, launch sites, and senior terrorists. We were ready for this. As part of the preparations for our operation in Iran, the IDF prepared for an attack from Hezbollah, allowing us to carry out a swift response.
Now, Iran has targeted Israel and neighboring countries, hitting not just military targets, but also civilian infrastructure. Iran firing missiles at airports, hotels, and residences, not just in Israel, but in Dubai and Bahrain and other neighbors, causing their officials to call out Iran and condemn them for these strikes. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited one of the sites that was struck in west of Jerusalem, hit by an Iranian missile. Here's what he said at the scene.
When I stand here in a place that was bombarded by the terrorists in Tehran against innocent civilians, you see the difference. The tyrants of Tehran target civilians. We target the tyrants of Tehran to protect civilians. I've said for many years that they threaten not only Israel and not only America. They chant death to Israel, death to America. That's their ultimate target. But I said that they would also target those in between, that they would target Europe.
Now, we're not seeing engagement from allies in Europe too much, mostly defensive, but we are seeing support from the sidelines, although they may not be contributing directly to the offensive against Iran. We have NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte saying that many European leaders are on board. Watch.
I really commend what is happening here. Taking out Khamenei, taking out the nuclear capability in Iran, but also taking out the ballistic missile program in Iran. This is crucial. And what I see in Europe, I spoke with all the key European leaders over the weekend, is widespread support for what the president is doing.
Meanwhile, 2 U.S. defense personnel injured in a drone strike in a hotel in Bahrain yesterday. It's normal for U.S. personnel that work on the embassy or on a base in Bahrain to stay in these hotels. The U.S. Embassy in Bahrain issued a notice today saying that certain sites within the country could become targets by Iran. Don.
And Jack, we're seeing an expansion of U.S. involvement in the region. What's the Pentagon saying?
Well, so according to the U.S. Central Command, the U.S. has hit more than 1,200 targets inside Iran. Now, they can include Iran's command and control centers, air defense systems, Navy ships. Iran had 11 ships in the Gulf just 2 days ago. Now, Central Command says they have 0. Pentagon officials say that hundreds of missions have already been launched under Operation Epic Fury, delivering tens of thousands of explosives. We saw 3 American F-15 fighter jets that were mistakenly shot down by Kuwait air defense systems, though, last night during active combat. Kuwaiti forces had misidentified these American jets as threats, and all 6 crew members, though, ejected safely. At the same time, we have officials saying that 1 Iranian missile slipped through U.S. air defenses that struck the operations center, resulting in the finding of the bodies of those 2 individuals, bringing the death toll that we now see up to 6 U.S. service members. Now, U.S. officials also caution that major combat operations are ongoing and more casualties here are possible. Take a look.
This is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses.
General Dan Kane also issuing a stern warning to anyone helping Iran. Take a look.
To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail.
And a message that's stinging clearly to Iran's allies. We know that the Chinese Communist Party accounts for half of the Iranian regime's income. That's according to the congressionally appointed U.S.-China Commission here on Capitol Hill. They reported that in 2024 alone, China bought 90% of Iran's sanctioned oil. Don.
All right, Jack, thank you for the report. Attacks left over by the Iranian regime affecting U.S. partners in multiple continents. Tehran attacking a British military base in Cyprus, dragging a NATO member state into the conflict. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more on how the war is impacting different countries.
Fighter jets being scrambled in Cyprus in the Mediterranean Sea. Officials on the island say an Iranian drone was successfully intercepted on Monday. But just a few hours earlier, 2 Iranian Shahed drones managed to bomb a British military base in Cyprus, inflicting minimal damage on the runway with no casualties being reported. The UK is a member of NATO, while Cyprus is a member of the European Union, meaning Iran is dragging 2 alliances into the conflict.
The security of our friends and partners in Cyprus is of critical importance.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer weighing in after the attacks on the nation's military base in Cyprus. The timing of the attacks is crucial, as the UK on Sunday started allowing the US to use its bases for defensive strikes against Iran. But Starmer says Iran's attack on the base in Cyprus doesn't have anything to do with that decision.
Our bases in Cyprus are not being used by US bombers. The strike on RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus was not in response to any decision that we have taken.
Residents in the village where the base is located now evacuating. The war is also affecting other countries in the region. Video shows rockets flying over Dubai in the UAE on Monday. This after Iran hit multiple targets in Dubai over the weekend. The country of Qatar has to pause production of liquefied natural gas after attacks on its facilities. Qatari LNG production is equivalent to about 20% of global supply. It plays a major role in balancing both Asian and European markets' demand for the fuel. Saudi Arabia is reportedly closing its biggest domestic oil refinery after a drone strike on Monday. Video shows smoke rising from the refinery. Saudi's defense ministry says it intercepted 2 drones, with debris causing a limited fire. No injuries are being reported. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Police in Austin, Texas, trying to find out the motive behind Sunday's shooting that left 2 people dead. What they know about the suspect and victims so far. We'll tell you more after this break.
Have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? Our spring style event is going on now, with hundreds of options for your new dining room. This 52-inch table is a great deal. It's just $4.99 in your choice of finishes. Mix and match chairs to complete the look that's just right for you. You can also get it with a marble top or in a larger size for extra seating. We have your style in stock now with fast, free delivery. Get your new dining room and save at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gyeong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
With Select Specs £6 specs, you can get 10 pairs of prescription glasses for just £60. That includes frames, prescription lenses, and delivery free to your door. And what makes this really special is each pair can have a different prescription. So it's glasses for everyone. SelectSpecs.com/£6. 10 frames, all with prescription lenses and delivery for just £60. You don't get that on the high street. Right now you can save an extra 5% with offer code CG5OFF.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver. And we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
The Trump administration will be briefing Congress tomorrow about the ongoing strikes in Iran. Here's more.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and the Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, will address the House and Senate. That's according to Dylan Johnson, Assistant Secretary of State for Global Public Affairs, speaking to The Hill. Johnson told The Hill the Pentagon spoke to the bipartisan staffs of several national security committees in both chambers yesterday. In a post on X on Saturday, House Speaker Mike Johnson said the group of lawmakers commonly known as the Gang of Eight was briefed last week about potential Iran strikes. That group includes the majority and minority leaders of both houses and the chairs and ranking members of the Senate and House Intelligence Committees.
House Speaker Mike Johnson fully backing President Trump's military operations in Iran. He is planning for a briefing between lawmakers and the Trump administration.
I've arranged for a classified briefing for all members of Congress tomorrow at 5 p.m. And we're going to have Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, the CIA Director Ratcliffe, and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Raising Kane. They're all going to brief the House and Senate members, Republican and Democrat, and lots of questions will be asked and answered there in the classified setting. But I think the president has been pretty transparent here.
The House Speaker says he hopes Republicans will be able to defeat a vote on the War Powers Act. He says it would be dangerous to restrict the commander-in-chief from completing the mission. Johnson also says he believes the president is fully within his authority to conduct the current operation. He calls the mission a defensive strike, not a declaration of war. The House Speaker stresses that the Iranian regime has been behind great evil for almost 5 decades, destabilizing the Middle East and undermining U.S. national interests. He also notes he will put back on the House floor another vote to fund the Department of Homeland Security by this Wednesday. And keep an eye out for lone wolf terror attacks is what the Department of Homeland Security warns law enforcement. This is following a deadly shooting in Texas, Austin, Texas, that left 2 dead. The shooting is being investigated as possibly being terror motivated. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
A Department of Homeland Security memo tells law enforcement to watch out for lone wolf terrorist attacks. After the president announced the attack on Iran on Saturday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said that her department is closely monitoring to thwart any potential threats to the homeland. Later that night, 2 people were killed and 14 injured after a gunman opened fire at a bar in Austin, Texas. The FBI Terrorism Task Force is investigating the incident. However, the motivation for the shooting has not been confirmed yet. New images show that the shooter's undershirt had an Iranian regime flag on it. Texas Senator Ted Cruz told Fox that on the surface so far, the Austin shooting appears to be a terror-motivated attack.
This is an individual, an immigrant who came from Senegal. He was there, as you noted, wearing a sweater that said property of Allah. He was wearing a shirt with an Iranian flag on it. There was a Koran in the car.
On Monday morning, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said the military is on high alert to possible sleeper cell attacks.
This is a former regime, that seeks to export that ideology and try to sow terror. We're ready for that. We've seen these types of folks before.
The New York City Police Department has heightened patrols and says it's continuing to closely monitor the situation in the Middle East. NYPD says following the mass shooting in Austin, Texas, and as Jewish communities celebrate Purim, we will maintain enhanced high-visibility patrols to sensitive locations citywide. This is due to the heightened threat environment and out of an abundance of caution. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Now, more updates from authorities in Austin, Texas. Identify 2 victims killed in the early Sunday shooting. They're still trying to find out more about the suspect's motive and potential links to terrorism. Here's more.
We will be releasing info as quickly as possible. Later this week, potentially Thursday, we'll be releasing body-worn camera of this event, as well as information on the suspect, including criminal history. And we see those indicators. We see the second shirt with the Iran, the picture of the Shah on that T-shirt as well. We're thinking about events and what's occurring in the country as well. And so, in addition to the fact that this was a huge, complex scene, we're calling in those federal partners to take a look at that as well. And so, again, the motives, all of those things, that's what this investigation is about right now.
Police identified the 2 victims killed as 24-year-old Savitha San and 22-year-old Ryder Harrington. 2 of the 14 injured are still in critical condition at the hospital. The DHS identifies the gunman who opened fire near a bar as 52-year-old, or 53-year-old actually, Diaga Diane, a naturalized citizen who originally came from Senegal in West Africa. Police shot and killed him at the scene. Authorities say they found evidence in his car that could indicate links to terrorism, but they note the suspect had not previously been on police radar. Authorities say they're still active in the investigation, and the priority right now is to find out the motivation. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the Trump administration is vigilant against potential domestic attacks, and the shooting will not change the operation in Iran. The Supreme Court has declined to hear a challenge to a federal law that bars convicted felons from owning firearms. The court's decision follows an appeal by a woman in Utah who argued the law violated her Second Amendment rights. Felons, including those convicted of nonviolent felonies, are prohibited from possessing firearms under the 1968 Gun Control Act. The Utah woman in the case had been barred from owning a gun following her 2008 felony bank fraud conviction. The Trump administration had urged the court to deny her challenge to the law. In a separate case today, the justices were hearing a challenge to a federal law barring users of illegal drugs from owning guns. The Federal Circuit Court of Appeals today denying the Trump administration's request to delay next steps in the tariff refund process. NTD's Arlene Richards has more.
In a blow to the Trump administration on Monday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit has sent the tariff case back to a lower court for further proceedings on refunds. The decision, written in a one-page order, denies the government's request that an existing pause be extended for at least 4 months. The court didn't give an explanation for the ruling. The plaintiffs, a group of small businesses, had urged the court to move the case along so they could pursue their refunds. The ruling comes after the Supreme Court's lengthy and complicated opinion 2 weeks ago, in which it ruled that President Trump couldn't use an emergency powers law to impose sweeping global tariffs. The highest court left open the option to impose tariffs under different laws, which Trump has already begun using. And as for the refunds,
they take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point.
Trump questioned what the government should do with the billions of dollars collected and suggested that the Supreme Court should have decided whether or not refunds had to be made.
I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years.
The U.S. Court of International Trade will now retake the matter. This court could determine the process for refunding more than $130 billion. It's unclear how it will proceed. More than 100 small businesses have already filed lawsuits seeking refunds. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Insurance companies are canceling war risk coverage for vessels in the Gulf as the widening Iran conflict disrupted shipping, leaving at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. Here's more.
Shipping in the Gulf has been disrupted as the widening Iran conflict has left at least 4 tankers damaged, 2 seafarers killed, and 150 ships stranded around the Strait of Hormuz. The strait between Iran and Oman carries around 1/5 of oil consumed globally, as well as large quantities of gas. Vessels in the area were hit as Iran retaliated to U.S. and Israeli strikes. Fears of a prolonged closure have caused oil and European natural gas prices to jump. Brent crude futures were up more than 8% as the conflict triggered multiple oil and gas shutdowns in the Middle East. Shipping data showed at least 150 vessels had dropped anchor in the strait and surrounding waters on Sunday. Iran has said it closed navigation through the critical waterway, prompting key buyers such as Asian governments and refiners to assess oil stockpiles. A U.S.-flagged product tanker was damaged by aerial impacts while berthed in the Gulf, the vessel's owner said in a statement. A projectile also hit a Marshall Islands-flagged product tanker, killing a crew member as the vessel sailed off the coast of Oman, its manager said. As a result, marine insurers are canceling war risk coverage for Iranian, the Gulf, and adjacent waters, according to notices. Ship owners are also deterred from sending vessels to the region, sources and analysts said. Meanwhile, the market will need more ships to load crude from the U.S. and West Africa, a source from a shipping company said.
The widening conflict in the Middle East is affecting the oil market. Prices are spiking after Iranian attacks disrupted shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Benchmark U.S. crude rose 5.7% to $70 a barrel. Brent crude jumped 6.2% to $77 per barrel. Nearly 1/5 of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz between Iran and Oman. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil move through the strait every day, along with 100 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Shipping data shows more than 200 vessels, including oil and liquefied gas tankers, are stalled outside the strait. Strikes in the Gulf region continue. Saudi Arabia's state oil giant Aramco shut down a refinery after it was hit by a drone. Eyewitness video shows heavy smoke billowing from the refinery. The complex is on the kingdom's Gulf Coast. It houses one of the Middle East's largest refineries with a capacity of 550,000 barrels per day. The Saudi Defense Ministry says 2 drones were intercepted at the facility, with debris causing a limited fire. No injuries were reported. And Qatar Energy has stopped liquefied natural gas production following military attacks on its Ras Laffan industrial complex. The company confirming the halt in a statement today. Earlier, Qatar's defense ministry said a drone targeted a water tank at a power plant inside the complex, while another drone struck an energy facility. The Ras Laffan complex is a key hub for Qatar's energy exports. The suspension of operations could have significant implications for global LNG supplies. Still to come, we ask an expert how the war in Iran threatens global oil. Stay with us for more after this break.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天鹰的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
This is how I keep my joints happy.
Omega XL is a powerful natural supplement backed by 40 years of clinical research. Take control of your pain, like Cynthia Bailey.
My knees in particular started giving me pain issues all the way back to my modeling days, from just running through airports, photo shoots. After taking Omega XL, I really started to notice how less stiff I was, especially my knees and my hip. Has Omega XL changed my life? Yes. I barely notice my joint pain anymore. Now I'm like literally sprinting through the airports. My secret is Omega XL.
Pick up the phone and call now to get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Omega XL and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. You'll also get a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. Buy one, get two free. A total value of over $115, all for just $49.95. You save more than 55% and shipping is free. Backed by a money-back guarantee and is not available in stores. Operators are standing by, so call now.
Joining us now for his insights on how the Iran war could impact global energy production is Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power of the Future. So Daniel, thank you for joining us today. And I want to start off with talking about the Strait of Hormuz. You know, about 20% of world oil and LNG goes through the strait. What has been the impact here of this operation in Iran? Because there has been a certain level of turbulence in the strait.
There has, and the Straits of Hormuz has been a turbulent area for decades. When you look at the map of that region, all Kuwaiti, a lot of Saudi oil, all Iraq, much of Iran's oil, not to mention United Arab Emirates, etc. These nations all depend upon those waterways to ship their fossil fuels to world markets. And so volatility there definitely causes a spike increase, and we've seen that. But we need a healthy perspective. When the Russia invasion of Ukraine happened a couple of years ago, oil prices spiked 35 to 40%. We've seen an 8% spike, which is still bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't want consumers to pay more for oil, but it's a measured response And the reason why is because we have a different set of priorities in this Oval Office and a priority of producing oil domestically and not worrying about international markets so much. So yes, oil prices are up, but they're not remotely compared to where they have been when such situations like this has happened before.
Okay, so Daniel, I'm not saying this would happen, but what would be the impact if Iran decided to halt the transit of oil through the Strait of Hormuz?
Oh, it would be bad for world markets, without a doubt. Go back to other major areas, conflicts in this area in years past. We saw oil hit $145 a barrel during the Gulf War. We've seen oil hit $125 a barrel, et cetera. So if it were truly shut down for a prolonged period of times, yes, the impact on the economy, on the world's economy, would be bad. Now, it wouldn't impact American supply, and that's a big difference. We get a lot of oil from this region because we refine it. We're the world's leading oil refiners. So the oil and gas that comes from this area isn't necessary for American consumption. It's because it's a service, as the analogy goes, they produce oranges and we make orange juice out of it, and then we sell it back to them. So it wouldn't have a supply impact on America, but it would have a price impact.
Okay, what is that price impact domestically at the pump? Because President Trump said this could last 4 to 5 weeks, and if needed, even longer. So what would Americans should expect prices to look like there?
Well, gas prices are up around 15 to 20 cents a gallon overnight. And that sounds like a lot, but we have to remember that we were paying $4.50 a gallon on average for the last couple of years of the Biden administration. So to go from $2.20 to $2.40 or $2.60, it is a price increase, but it is a measured price increase. I can't give a total number because I don't know how long these operations are going to last. Right now, there's a little bit of a shutdown. Who knows what America's Navy is going to do tonight and open up those shipping lanes. I know President Trump said that they have sunk several Iranian Navy vessels, and there have been a lot of operations on Iranian ports. So, for all we know, the shipping lanes could open up tomorrow. I'm sure the administration is well aware of the impact on world economies. But when you are trying to establish freedom for an area of the world that has rained terror on millions of people, there are going to be some implications, and this is one of them.
So Daniel, can I ask you about China? Because as you know, China buys 80 to 90% of Iran's seaborne oil. So, half of China's oil imports also flow through the Strait of Hormuz. So just talk to us about the dynamics here.
And when you add on top of that Venezuela operations, now I believe the president announced that they were starting to sell Venezuelan crude, and China was one of the customers they were selling it to. But look at the dynamic. It is America allowing China to buy oil from Venezuela, not Venezuelans acting independently. If you're Premier Xi and the CCP, you have to be deeply concerned. Their greatest energy vulnerability is their lack of a domestic oil supply, and they are very, very much aware of that vulnerability. When Venezuela is off the table, and now Iran looks to be off the table, you are squeezing the Chinese economy. And your audience knows, and China is not the peaceful, happy, thriving economy that it projects. A little bit of market turbulence in China could be cataclysmic. So without having to actually say the word China or even talk about Premier Xi, China is really feeling the impact of this Trump foreign policy, and a weakened China is good for world peace.
Okay, Daniel, maybe you can just give us one real-world example inside China where this oil or lack thereof might impact its people there.
Well, China has a huge reliance on electric vehicles, no doubt, but they do have combustion engine cars. And combustion engine cars need imported crude in order to function, right? Heavy machinery. China has a huge mining operation. All of that machinery requires crude oil as well, refined oil products. So many of the materials that we buy from China, whether it's plastics or rubber or steel, all of that requires oil inputs. And so it's not just, the car. Sometimes I think we forget that crude oil does a lot more than just produce gasoline for cars. Look at jet fuel, right? Look at a lot of the Navy operations that China has. Look at a lot of its military operations. All of that requires crude oil. And so if that crude oil supply begins to dwindle, prices will begin to skyrocket, and China's economy cannot absorb volatile oil prices the way America's economy can.
So Daniel, just one final question here. Amid what's happening, everything that's happening around us, just talk to us about how important American energy production and dominance is at this point, not just for the U.S., but maybe even for the world.
It really is. And I appreciate you ending with this because it's important to remember. And I began by saying, when you look at the Russian invasion of Ukraine, how oil prices spiked 35-40%. We're producing almost 3 million barrels a day more than we did when Russia invaded Ukraine. And those 3 million barrels demonstrate the lack of volatility in oil markets. Yes, they are up 6%, 7%, but that's nothing compared to 35-40%. And that was not very many years ago. And the delta here is American energy dominance. It is America producing enough oil, but it is also the market signal that this administration has sent by saying, oil is available, land leases are available, Alaska, the Outer Continental Shelf, the Gulf of America, all of these places are open for oil and gas exploration. And there's a calmness in oil markets right now. And America is really setting the tone for the world's oil industry. And that is a tone of calm and resiliency.
Well, all right, Daniel, you always have great insight. Thank you for speaking with us today.
My pleasure. Always great to be with you.
First Lady Melania Trump presided over a United Nations Security Council meeting today. The First Lady's remarks focus on education for children in conflict zones as the U.S. and Israel carry out strikes against Iran. Listen.
Education is widely recognized as a fundamental human right. And yet today, so many children and young adults are banned from attending secondary schools and universities. The cost is not abstract. Imagine the loss of potential to our collective humanity, new medical breakthroughs, advancement in food security, groundbreaking technologies, all gone. A society that excludes vast segments of its population can realize only a fraction of its potential. Societies ruled by knowledge and wisdom are therefore more peaceful. We must cultivate a just moral imagination for the next generation, for our children, building an infrastructure of understanding.
Melania Trump is the first spouse of a world leader to chair the UN Security Council. The U.S. is taking over the presidency of the rotating 15-member council for March. The First Lady's comments come after Iranian state media reported that an airstrike hit a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday. The Israeli military said it was not aware of strikes in the area. The U.S. military said it was looking into the reports. The UN Secretary General has condemned the U.S. and Israeli airstrikes as violation of international law and the UN Charter. The State Department is updating travel guidelines for a number of Middle Eastern countries following Iranian strikes. We'll tell you about it after this break. Stay with us.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Dave's Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's enzyme fermented coffee.
Disasters are not a matter of if, but when. And they're happening in communities like ours more often.
Even before disaster strikes, hunger is already a crisis in America. But a disaster tests the very heart of who we are as a community. Food is scarce. But it's in these moments of crisis that our strength shines through. Because as neighbors, we lead the way forward. Please join with Feeding America, and let's be there for families in crisis. Call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Rushes food, water, and urgent supplies into communities just like yours.
They called us immediately and said, what can we do?
It's those partnerships that come together and respond to recovery.
Feeding America works with local food banks to get immediate relief to families as they recover, and we stay for as long as it takes, because disasters don't wait, and neither do we.
They delivered a truckload of food to us to undergird what we had.
Every box of food, every bottle of water, shows the power of neighbors being there for each other. When we work together, we are never alone. Call or donate online at givetofeedingamerica.org. Your gift will be so much more than a donation. It will be a filling meal for a child, comfort for a family in crisis.
We need to be there for our community for the next 40 years, just like we were for the last 40 years. And that's helping people build back in a way that is as strong as possible.
Please call or go online and give right now. With your monthly gift, we'll send you this exclusive canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
We're definitely here during the storm, and we're going to be here long after the storm.
But we need your support to continue being there for your community, for you, and for every family facing a crisis. Please call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org and make your urgent gift today.
Adopting you was the best decision in our life. And I'm so proud to call you my son.
The State Department is updating travel guidelines for a number of Middle Eastern countries following Iranian strikes. It has designated Iran, Iraq, and Lebanon as level 4, the highest category of danger. It's advising Americans against traveling to these countries for any reason. The department has been urging U.S. citizens in Iran to shelter in place and is now extending that warning to Iraq as well. Meanwhile, it's advising Americans in Lebanon to book commercial flights to leave the country. The State Department also updating its advisories for Bahrain, Israel, Kuwait, Qatar, and Pakistan to level 3. It's warning Americans to reconsider travel and, if they're already there, to shelter in place. Egypt, Jordan, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are now designated as level 2. Americans are advised to exercise increased caution when traveling to these countries. Those already there are advised to shelter in place or exercise caution. The U.S. and Gulf countries are strongly condemned Iran's strikes in the region. A joint statement says, quote, "The Islamic Republic's actions represent a dangerous escalation that violates the sovereignty of multiple states and threatens regional stability." And in New York City, a rally over the weekend looks forward to a new future for Iran. Let's take a look at what attendees are saying.
I'm so grateful for this day and to be here with my fellow Iranian people, my fellow countrymen who suffered 47 years of oppression under the Islamic regime. And I cannot tell you how much grateful we are to finally taste liberation and freedom again after 47 years of tyranny. Thank you, President Trump. We love you. The Iranian people will forever be grateful. Thank you. We're looking forward to a better future, and we are so grateful it's finally happening. No other president did it, but President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu stood up. We are grateful for both of you. The Iranian people will be grateful for generations and centuries to come. Thank you.
I want to say thank you, Mr. President Trump. I appreciate. I believe my people. My people is intelligent. My people are hero. My people are brave, and I believe them. They can make Iran great again.
We are looking for freedom. We are looking for is the peace for all of the world. Iranian people is very kind. Iranian people is very friendly for all over the world. Thank you so much, President Trump. And thank you so much, President Bibi Netanyahu.
47 years, and now we are really, really excited. Thank you for the U.S., thank you for Israel to provide freedom to the people of Iran, and we are going to see a regime change any day now. We are confident.
The supreme leader of Iran, which he was basically murdering and slaughtering people for 47 years. So he's out. So we're happy. We came here to celebrate. We also came here to say thank you to Mr. Trump. Thank you to U.S. forces. Thank you to Israeli forces for helping the Iranian people to make this happen. So the job is not finished yet. We need to change the regime. And obviously when the time is ready to come, we're going to come back to the street and we're going to take over back our government.
We are here to show the world that Iranian people inside of Iran, they're happy, they're dancing, don't worry about them. They want war. They want war. This war is not with the Iranian people. This war is with the Iranian regime. I'm here for 10 years. I haven't seen my family. We contact with them, but there's the internet shutdown. We can't talk to them. You know, it's a lack of the communication. I want a message for New Yorkers or Americans, actually. So the regime of Iran killing tons of Iranians, like thousands of them, over 50,000 people. They not only threat to the Iranian people, they threat to the whole world, especially Americans. Americans should know that whatever the U.S. military do it right now, it has benefit for them. It has benefit for my kids, your future grandchildren.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. We're taking a break. We'll be back with more news. And stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
Disasters are not a matter of if, but when. And they're happening in communities like ours more often.
Even before disaster strikes, hunger is already a crisis in America. But a disaster tests the very heart of who we are as a community. Food is scarce. But it's in these moments of crisis that our strength shines through. Because as neighbors, we lead the way forward. Please join with Feeding America, and let's be there for families in crisis. Call or go online to givetofeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Rushes food, water, and urgent supplies into communities just like yours.
They called us immediately and said, what can we do?
It's those partnerships that come together and respond to recovery.
Feeding America works with local food